So first, thank you guys for, I'd like to thank HotelSpaces for having this meeting in our hotel. This is my second time speaking with the group, and it's always extremely fun and very interactive that, we've got vendors and real estate folks. We'll give you a little bit of a purview of who we are and what we do. So I'm Randy Gaines. I am Senior Vice President Operations for Hilton Worldwide. Been with the company about 10 years. Before that, I used to work for Host Marriott, Host Hotels, real estate company, and then before that, I worked in, all roads lead back to Marriott. Even this hotel 15 years ago was a Marriott. Worked in Marriott Senior Living Services for a bunch of real estate groups. So very exciting and great career personally. And then you've kind of come up through the whole ranks of things.
Sure have, yeah. Sure have. I just came from Manhattan about 2 years ago. Spent about 15 years up there. And I was here in the the mid-'80s. My wife and I got married here, and we decided after the children grew up that we'd come back, and here we are. These two great assets.
So a little bit about Hilton and where we've come and what we're doing as it relates to owners. We were a private company owned by Blackstone and bought in 2007 in the tailspin of the world. We all remember, hey, can we get back to 08? Can we get back to 09 and where we were? Blackstone bought us at the height of the market, overpaid, and then the world just changed. So 09 through probably 2010, we pedaled to get the company back to a stable place. We are at that time, probably a $25 billion company. We owned and operated hotels, big, giant, like this hotel. We owned it. And what happened in 2010 is we went public as a company. And when we went public, we worked very hard to stabilize the balance sheet, get us to a status quo of a company that people would invest in. Similar to what Marriott did back in the 90s, we split the company. After we went public, we decided about a year and a half ago, we split the company into three pieces. And those three pieces were an OpCo company, which I work for, which is Hilton Hotels and Resorts. And that value proposition of that company is probably worth $10 billion. And we spun out our real estate, which includes this hotel, into a REIT. And that REIT is known as Park Hotels and Resorts. So we created a REIT, probably one of the last REITs that you're going to see. For those of you, and I don't want to speak elementary, but basically a REIT, all the profits you make, you throw it back in. It's a big tax break for the company. So instantly creating that REIT saved us about $400 million, right? And you reinvest and you reinvest. And then we spun out our timeshare business to Hilton Grand Vacation Clubs. So here we are today, and we're an operator, right? So many of us, we had to shift our hat. I mean, so for the company, I run our engineering, housekeeping, operations, and then I'm responsible for new build and transitions. I have about $1.2 billion worth of P&L responsibility, and it's all the stuff that doesn't make money. It's tough. So we spun out those pieces, and then here we are today. Now, we used to ask the questions at John's Hotel. Now we have to answer the questions. So how has it been with this new group, Park Hotels and Resorts? How's that working out for you? So differences, insight into what, how is it working, owner-operator, you can do whatever you want. You put your money where you want to. So how's it been?
Well, I've worked with the REITs for a long time, and particularly this group with Rob Tannenbaum and those guys. And so I understand their mentality. And look, they got me this job. So, I think Hilton as a brand.
Oh, you're a seed.
But I think Hilton as a brand is very open to that. They want to be transparent. But my job really at the end of the day is to bring the two entities together all the time on decision making. The brands are very forceful. They want to protect their brand. The owners think there's some outrageous stuff going on with the brands. But I think it's just, it has to be empirical data. It has to be data driven, right? It has to be, so we take a lot of feedback from guests. We take it to the brand. We take it to the owners. And I think Hilton's a lot more malleable, I think, than they used to be as far as the brand standards. I think they're listening more, and I think the owners are, everybody wants an ROI, right? But well, I'll give you an example. Like, the Waldorf brand wants you to have a 24-hour fitness attendant, right, in Key West. Does anybody use the gym in Key West? I don't know if that's even a 24-hour fitness attendant. But that's a good example of an exception that if you go to them with the exception, I think the rule of thumb is you can't go to the brand and say, well, we're going to save money. I don't think that they want to hear that. They want to hear that you're going to stretch service, right? Can somebody else do that job? Can somebody else tidy up the gym? Do you really need a person standing there? So it's just things like that all day. And then who's your customer, right? This is a unique property because there are some people that still think this is a Marriott. I mean, there are some of our customers have been coming here for 30 years that still think they don't know what, and then yet we still have brand loyal customers that come here. So we kind of got to filter and figure all that stuff out and make sure that we're making the right brand decisions and the owner's getting their return.
So this luxury thing has been,
When did the property become Waldorf?
I think it was over 10 years ago.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it was
10 years ago.
7 or 6, somewhere in that time frame, 06, 05. And, this was Marriott for a long time, but what this place is, it's a destination for people. It's memories. It's fond memories. And, for those of you who operate Four Seasons, who operate St. Regis, who operate Ritz-Carlton, there are the brand pillars. And there's a level of expectation behind luxury. So we talk about this a lot. So New York, great example, right? Where Ong Bong, the Waldorf Astoria on Park Avenue, been sitting in for a year and a half. They paid $1.9 billion for the hotel. Ong Bong bought it from us. They're going to put $1.2 billion into it. And they're going to open up as a 360-key hotel and a 360-key residence. But what they're going to do, they're going to have a great restaurant. They're going to have service beyond belief. Now, for those of you who work in New York and work under the union labor rules in New York, it doesn't make money. And it's a real tough thing. This is a difficult conversation to have with, and I used to work at a REIT, with a person, when they look at the hotel, they don't see a hotel. Real estate people see a piece of dirt and money signs on it. Literally, like when you look at it, it's a block and it's got a big money sign on it. So it's a very difficult conversation, and it's a balance behind the brand pillars and our commitment to deliver them. And you as a customer, when you show up, we that level of expectation. Now, and again, it's about the people. And I have to applaud John and your people. Your people are great. The bartender, it's the people that will make that experience and that deliverable. But if you're going to be a St. Regis, a Ritz-Carlton, a Waldorf Astoria, a Four Seasons, there's a minimum level of entry. And for those of us who've worked in real estate, it's some of that investment, it doesn't make money. We're talking on Bong about in New York about investing into a $10 million into a restaurant. It's a race to break even. But that's a level of expectation. And so,
Someone suggests this is hardly a Waldorf in terms of the condition of the hotel. John, I can feel for you being the GM of a property like this, because I don't know how many people I've talked to here. This is not the expectation of a Waldorf. And so you can point to New York City, where you're not making the investment. Hilton's not making the investment on this property, and there is evidence everywhere around here of a disconnect between operator and owner.
So let me ask you this. I don't know the numbers. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. What's your penetration market share? What are you at? 110, 120, 130?
About 126.
So we're the best. What that means and tells me, as an operator, we own the market. Now, however, when he's doing, what's your redemption rate here from honors?
Could be like 45,000 points a night.
So we've got a high redemption rate, and we have that level of expectation, right? And when they come down here, they're going to make the investment. The owner in this hotel is going to make that investment. This hotel will have to have that investment if you're going to stay part of the collection, right? And we as a company at Hilton, we used to own all these hotels. And now it's a real estate play. For those of you who've been to like the Waldorf Astoria in Beverly Hills, for those of you who've been to some of our Waldorf Astorias internationally, I mean, Rome, Shanghai, I mean, we've got some beautiful collections. And this hotel, when you're number one, it's very difficult for you to make that investment. So, but we'll flex. We'll flex. We want that customer to come in here. Hey, these Waldorf customers are coming here and they're happy. It does need an investment for sure, and it'll come over time, and it will be repositioned to meet the pillars and the brand's needs. It's not. It just can't stay that way forever. What you're seeing. Good question.
Good answer.
So, shifting gears a little bit behind the whole piece. One of the things that we wanted to talk to everyone about that John experienced is dealing with these hurricanes, dealing with the storms, and John's team and how we can open it up for questions. We'll save some time for questions. So you were here through the storm, and I applaud everything you did. And we should probably kind of talk through some of that. There were a lot of lessons learned. There were a lot of things that we as an owner and an operator. So when the hurricane was hitting this hotel, we had just created this REIT component, and we were operating and we were going through pieces. Give us a little bit of insight of John and Ken about how that worked out for you in the storm and the components and the pieces. Because I mean, bar none, this hotel was probably some of the best prepared groups in the industry from what I saw.
Well, it was all about preparedness, really. For the hurricanes, you have to be prepared. I mean, they're very vigilant down here, both the state of Florida and as well as Key West, about these hurricanes. So you start going to courses beginning in May on preparedness. So you got to be prepared because everything depends upon getting back up and running, right? I mean, so what we found was if we anticipated what was going to happen and we prepared for the worst, which we always do, that we'll be better prepared. And in that case, the storm kind of missed us a little bit, but we got a lot of rain and we got a lot of wind, we got a lot of damage. But as Randy said, the corporate office, I mean, Hilton can move mountains, right? They're a big corporation. They were very supportive. The communication was very good before the hurricane, so we were able to get what we needed to run the organization. I think what was most important is getting back down here and getting a leadership team in like maybe 2 days afterwards. And we flew in by helicopter. We got people on the ground. We found out where our staff was. Because that's one thing people don't anticipate is entry back in once there's a hurricane, and it's hard to get back here once there's a hurricane. They shut it down. So we were able to get back. We were able to get the asset and get people on the ground to begin working to clear so they could work on the asset. So it just wasn't sitting here for weeks and weeks. And we were back up in 5 weeks. We had a wedding out on the beach, which was one of the most damaged areas. We had to put like almost 5 million tons of sand out there because of the hurricane, and we had a wedding out there on October the 16th.
So part of this piece, and I go back to Wilma, Katrina, and our days, and I think what some lessons learned over the years. Each storm hurricane, there's a couple things we can't control. Mother Nature, this is one of them. Each storm has its own temperament and brings its own set of challenges. What we've learned is that pre-approval, there's a couple things that we did. Pre-approval to spend funding with our insurance company prior to the storm. So we, securing generators. Spending, $1 million before the storm even hits. And that's a risk, right? It's a risk you can run as a company that why would I buy all this stuff and then we don't use it? And then having a communication plan that resonates far, deep, and wide. And, a communication plan that works. So the pre-approval process, what we've done in all storms is with all owners is just get the generator. Spend the $250,000, get it, because you're going to need it. And communication is also key. So take Puerto Rico. Everyone checked their sat phones. It was beautiful. I remember I was in Portland with our president when Puerto Rico hit. We were in a war room. It was I hate to say a shit storm. It was a bad storm. We couldn't get on anymore. Why? Fucking sat phones don't work when there's a big fucking cloud over the hotel and we lost contact. We lost communication. Me and the president of the company are sitting in a room going, holy shit, we can't get a hold of. So we're sitting there looking at each other, and so, kind of left those people on an island because the sat phones didn't work. It was, holy cow. So we fixed that, to have definitely communications. And then I use the RACI theory, responsibility, accountability, communication, and inform. And in the way that I think, I live in a box. And one person responsible, right? He's the chief. He's the commander. You run the show. And then from our camp, logistics officers that are ultimately that person who can run the show. So, and then it's the whole owner and operator piece, right? So how many of you guys work in, I'm assuming we've got some owners in the room, several owners. So yeah, you like to run the show when something happens with the storm, but ultimately, hey, you hired a brand and a company to manage your hotel, and you're paying them 3, 4, 5, 6%, whatever we're getting out of that, and it's their job. So in reality, a lot of our owners are like, hey, look, we hired you. You guys run it, but it's a team effort, right? When it comes to this, and then here, for example, John had a couple of people that didn't want to leave the hotel. So here, when we I think you had a few people who had some elderly parents and some other things, and we didn't realize that people may want to shelter in place at the hotel. We're like, get the hell out. The National Guard's going around town telling people to get the hell out of town, and you're coming back to the hotel because it's a safe haven. So we fixed that in a go-forward basis, right? We've got, if you want to, John has a letter that says, hey, look, get the hell out of town. We're not storm chasers. We don't have GoPros. We can't do this. But if you're going to stay here, here's a piece of paper. Sign this thing because, you can die. When the National Guard tells you to get the hell out of town, there's a reason. This is not, for your social media video component. So, and then you learn, like here, air conditioning. You need water to run the chillers, the boilers. So certain things become commodities over time. I don't know if you guys remember in New Orleans, we were running milk trucks with water in them back and forth to run the cooling towers to keep the humidification down because it's stabilization. Because ultimately, every one of these storms, Puerto Rico, here, New Orleans, Wilma, Florida, it was all about preventing the enemy, mold and mildew and moisture. So I think that having those plans have been extremely important. So.
And I'd stay very close with your suppliers and your vendors during the hurricane. Those are the people that are going to help you. if you're not close with them, the politicians, the locals, it's really hard to get stuff done. Really hard.
Yeah, that's a good point. So Cabo got whacked a couple years back, and I remember what we did is when we fly these guys in the helicopter. So we have a helicopter on call, get them in. We have a bag of cash, and so especially in Mexico. So we flew them in. We flew in a bag of cash. We flew in a couple people who could kind of work the deal, and then it becomes and then you ultimately, what we've done, and you've done this too, you get National Guard, you get other folks to stay at the hotel as a recovery component. I think you guys had some, these groups that were coming down to help. And then, you had some probably wonderful barbecues on the beach.
That was great.
During the recovery piece. So.
Well, that's an important part too. If you become the open hotel, you can feed a lot of the locals, you can feed the firemen, you can feed the police, which we did, and feed the National Guard, and people got to eat. So, and that's a great way to connect.
Yeah.
Yes, I think he has a question.
You mentioned one of your challenges was after the storm, figuring out where your associates were.
Right.
So, two-part question: how many associates do you have, and where do they live? Is it on island, way off? Do you bus in every day?
No, most of our people are here. Most of the people are all locals. A good Haitian population does the housekeeping. They live in Stock Island. And then we have employee housing over here, which we house some people. But as we talked about the checklist, that's one of the most important things is try and get everybody's cell phone, because you got to get people back to work. They're going to stay wherever they ran to unless you tell them, hey, you can come back to work, right? They're watching the news. And so we got everybody's cell phones that we could. A lot of the Haitian population don't have cell phones, so they just kind of wandered back in. But we have close to, I think, 250 full-time associates. And everybody was safe. Nobody got hurt. And we had probably 80% of the workforce back probably within 10 days. And we were able to feed them. Again, we were able to feed them. We had the kitchen running because Hilton, with their muscle, got trucks down here with food and water. And we were able to really, that's the most important thing is feeding people. They brought their families over. And so we got the place cleaned up pretty quickly.
Second question: what's the deal with the chickens?
It's what you can do is you can ride along the conch train. He'll tell you, the little conch train that goes around. I cheat, right? I don't pay.
Bumpy ride.
But it all started when I was here in the mid '80s. There was no chickens, but I guess this story must have. But there was cockfighting here years and years ago. I guess the Cubans used to bring them over, and they used to cockfight all the time. So that's how the roosters became protected. They're part of the culture here. And believe me, I am around my house, and it's.
They certainly wake your ass up.
But so we have a chicken whisperer that I don't know if you guys have seen her walking around. She comes in and collects the chickens and relocates them.
Can you tell them to whisper when they at 4 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah, well, they're a problem.
Another question, Gunnar.
Well, I just had a statement. You were right on about getting generators prepared. A lot of times when we go in a situation, they're asking for the generator
After the fact.
Yeah, forget that.
And it's very important that you start to dial in your resource on that generator, because once that storm hits, the inventory just gets wiped.
Yeah.
And it's so important to get that hotel back up.
So it's not just a generator. So, and I hate to air my laundry, but for those of you who know me, I'm an honest guy, and I air it. So we got the generator here, but we didn't get the right cables. So they were too freaking short. It was too long of a run. We were up on the 2nd floor. Generator pulls up, and it's like, so it's not just it's not
Whoops.
just about it's not hey do a hand spring and hold it together. So what we learned from that is and the takeaway from that, it's very simple, right? Like once you have these experiences, common sense prevails. So we made everyone map ABC phasing. we made everyone kind of understand the hookup and the components. And, you know, unfortunately, when the guy was running with the, you know, you think a couple hundred feet of cable is okay, but when we're up on the second floor and you're going upstairs, all of a sudden you get like to a floor and a half and you don't have any more cable. So and it's really common sense when you're in the middle of a crisis, and in our families we have this in the middle of a death and trying to find it. When you're in the middle of a crisis, things are just different. When you can do it in the planning piece in a calm, rational place, be it power, be it other things. So it's the calm after the storm is where we've been able to, in our group, come up with some extremely valuable lessons in a go-for basis. And you can bet your ass that, you know, on a go-for basis, we'll never get that wrong.
I'd like to shift back to the owner
Sure.
relationship. Can you speak a little bit to how you roll out initiatives and how involved the owners are when it comes to capital investments that are required, brand required?
Sure.
It seems, in our experience, sometimes these things aren't completely vetted out and it's experimented on the owners.
Yeah. So, very interesting question, right? Yeah, I can give you the brand and the corporate statement. We all have the owner advisory council, sits on the brand with our largest owners. We run these initiatives past them, be it a signage change, be it other things. Great example is I run housekeeping, and we've got this panic button issue we're grappling with, and it's going to cost a lot of money to put these little devices on our housekeepers, but we feel it's very important to run it past the owner advisory council. Unanimously, I do. But when you say, hey, we're going to change breakfast, and you need or change signage, it's a little bit of a more difficult conversation. So it starts, the brand pillars initiatives start at the owner advisory council, the big initiatives. And then how do you get the owners' buy-in? Obviously, we talked about this earlier, that owners look at it as an ROI. They look at that investment. And, you know, what we are rolling out, and I think when you look at us against Marriott, Marwood, Starriott, whatever you want to call them now, Hyatt, other groups, we're thoughtful in not rolling out something that's not going to yield a return. So obviously everything we underwrite it, it has to have a return, but there are certain things you got to do that just like the chip and pin pieces and we have bad people out there, unfortunately, that are trying to infiltrate our hotels. I can tell you stories that would make your head spin about honors accounts being fraudulently tapped and other things. So you as an owner may say, well, hell, my IT works and this and that works, but there are certain things that we're doing that just to make sure that to keep the bad guys out. And we don't like to do it either. We'd rather put the money in this hotel right now. If we had $100 million, we'd all put it in the beautiful things that make it special, the experiential, the room, the other pieces. But and that's what's going to yield that return. So what we're doing, we're getting that buy-in through ROI, and we're presenting thoughtful plans. Back in the old days, we'd just present a plan, and it would be a bunch of crap. You'd throw $3 or $4, $5, $6, $10 million against the wall and see if you got two. And I think that we as a company, if we're presenting thoughtful plans, prioritizing those and things we need to the ownership group and collaborating as a partner, we're getting places. I mean, you can probably talk to some of that, your collaboration with your asset management team and their buy-in into some of these things.
Yeah, I mean, all the time. But this panic button's interesting because I was in New York, and the union started all that stuff because of the incident that happened up there. But now, because it's technology, you can use your RECs, which is your housekeeping devices, because the housekeepers don't even like really wearing the buttons. So you're spending all this money, and so now you got these devices, Rex, which is a housekeeping device to show the housekeepers where to go, and now you can program it into this mechanism, so you don't need the button. So you just
We
save.
solved it, yeah,
So
for
you
low
save,
cost.
yeah, you saved a lot of money. But the owners are involved in a lot of stuff. I mean, we're switching out our something as small as switching out our valet parking. We're going to make it all valet next year, and they were very involved in the whole process of commanding more dollars for valet parking and getting the right gate. They ran it through their guys with our technology people, and I think it ended up being we didn't buy like this big thing you use in big parking garages. We ended up buying a small unit, and it was going to be a great return on that. So the owners are very engaged and very involved in everything that we do here.
So just to follow up on that,
Yeah.
I would agree, having worked with multiple brands, that Hilton is probably one of the better ones to work with when it comes to the rollout of initiatives. But in addition to the advisory board, is there a task group? I'm trying to understand.
You're looking at them. So what we do, I work in McLean. I work on the 11th floor. I sit 2 doors down from our CEO. I sit right next to the head of brands. Myself and our president are the 2 operations representatives for the Americas. And we're a proving ground for a lot of stuff. So it's really interesting if you put the right people in the right places. So, and here's the thing that happens at big giant corporate offices. And I'm quite proud of our company. We were voted number 2 out of the most recently, yesterday, out of the top 25 companies in the world to work for. So it's definitely a great culture, a great place. I mean, how many people can say they love what they do? So in our business, we love what we do, right? But we've got these, I hate to call them kids, but we have strategy, kids, innovation people that I'll never forget. They came to me the other day, the DoubleTree brand came to me. Look at this lovely thing we want to put in the drawers, Randy. I'm like, how long have you guys been working on this thing? They're like, we've been working on it for months. Don't you love it? And I go, let's pause. How much does it cost? They go, it's only $25. I said, okay, got a homework for you. I want you to go look at the number of occupied rooms that we had last year in your brand and what that expense piece is. And when they went back and did the homework, they're like, hey, Randy, maybe we shouldn't do this little thing in the drawer. So there's a sanity check that has to kind of take place. So, we're not perfect, right? But what we do, since we have a lot of hotels, we prove it out. So I'll give you an example. So I'm into this, like this MaidBot thing, this robot vacuum cleaner. And I like this guy. I've known him for a long time, this kid that started this company. But it's going to yield a return. And we're going to roll it out as a group. We're going to throw these little things in, and they're $200 a month, and they're going to clean. When you're out of this room, it's going to vacuum the whole thing, and it'll park itself. So we have to put our efforts towards thoughtful initiatives and steer those teams in that group. I mean, the good thing about working at a large hotel group is the fact that you've got all these wonderful people that want to do great things. So, how do we test them? We test them in our own assets, and we prove them out. I run housekeeping. You would be amazed at the. So you guys probably don't know this, but so about 4 or 5 years ago, I decided the sheets were they're heavy. So went to the brand. They're like, oh, we need a heavy towel, we need this and that. But so, hey, look, stop, And we change things, and I bet it saved millions. We lightened up the sheet, lightened up the thread count. Those are the things, in my mind, that as a brand and as a group, we need to do. You're not recognizing it, but as an owner, it's going to flow to your pocket.
How did Marriott acquiring Starwood impact any of your planning at that stage?
So I can speak to that. We had, I guess it's public knowledge. We had a chance to take that deal. I live in downtown Bethesda. I used to work for the largest real estate company around. Our CEO Chris Nacetta used to run the largest REIT in the hospitality sector. They came to us and we looked at it, but we felt that it would distract us from growing our brands. And it has been a distractor because you've got redemption systems, you've got a merge, you've got a bunch of Sheratons, you've got AOP issues. Those of you who are in the business know that the area protection, look at New York alone, the Sheraton, the little Sheraton, the big Sheraton, the Marriott, the W. Look at Times Square and run an AOP. You're kind of competing against yourself a little bit. I'm surprised the Justice Department didn't step in like they did with some of these other mergers where you become this dominancy. So we looked at it and we opted to grow who we are through. We thought it would distract us. Now, at the end of the day, it's probably going to be 5 or 6 years from now. It's a good thing. I mean, but it's their strategy.
And did your strategy at the time change because Marriott?
Oh, absolutely. I flip hotels, and we picked up beautiful, great hotels. I'm not saying they took their eye off the ball, but it was a bit of a distractor. And, if you're an owner and you own a Marriott and now right next door, the Sheraton's in the pool, you're a little bit pissed off. So we've been able to pick up flags and other things and I do think that Marriott doing that was it's a good plan. And in the long run, it'll all work out for them.
Randy, can I ask a question? We're owner-operators, franchisees on the Hilton side, as well as on the other brands. But, you mentioned your relationship between owner-operator and REIT. The gentleman up front brought up the condition of the hotel, the fact that it's capital dollars. So, on the inside, you have control of that. As a franchisee, it seems like many times we're held to a different standard, or there's consequences down the line if we don't comply with what the brand says we have to do. Any advice on how to kind of talk about that a little bit? Again,
Yeah. So the way that you're held hostage, we'll say, using the BPS team, the brand performance, come out, right, and that's your yardstick against that. The BPS team, building a good relationship with that BPS person, being a little proactive, reaching out, instead of waiting for them to come. I know all these guys; they're all good people. They're like us, right? They just want to do the right thing, and I think having an open dialogue, and then, raising that. If franchise group, it's our biggest customer, right? So we wouldn't survive without the franchise group, right? So it's not like we can ignore that. So I think that building a wonderful relationship with this BPS component and being a little proactive will go a long way. Instead of them coming out and walking with the checklist, and that group's changed a lot as well. They're stable now, just like every company, right? We go through changes, and so I think that just partnering with that BPS team. And Marriott has the same. I worked at Marriott. I negotiated PIPs and other things, and I think all companies all brands have this same issue. When I was at White Lodging back in the early '90s, we had the same thing where, Marriott, you suck. You don't know what you're doing. We can run it better. You should pay everyone $1 to go eat somewhere else. You're terrible. So we, when we're operators in the franchise environment, and I think from a franchise environment, you can do a better job at certain things. I mean, we're Hilton. We're tied to union sometimes, and so I think there is something said to that. But that BPS team, they're the place to start. So we got about a minute or so. Any other?
Any additional questions? No.
Did you have any other career path other than what you've chosen?
Oh, me? That's a good question. Well, I could get fired tomorrow. Who knows? You know. So, I love our business. I love a lot of people in this room. I know a lot of people. I go back a long way. And you know, if you care about what you do and you love what you do, yeah, I think people are they're gonna keep you around, right? You know, I was at a party a couple weeks ago, and I was with a bunch of guys who work in IT, they're Oracle and other things, and they're like, I hate when I do those Friday calls, you know, and it's so, you know, I'm sure you love what you do too, John.
Best job in the world.
This is, so if you love what you do, and you have purpose, and you're purpose-driven, I think we'll always have a career path.
Sure. And I wanted to ask you a question about this past hurricane season and maybe others prior. In your experience, have you noticed any kind of assistance between hotel companies, or is it every man for himself?
No, I mean, you want to talk about RLJ and Carl Mayfield and what happened with, and I'll tell you a quick story after that.
No, you should definitely reach out, know the community. When those type of things happen, everybody wants to help. And if somebody has more, I know that we borrowed food from other hotels, we gave food to other hotels, we were in communication. You should really stretch out and know your neighbors. I know Hilton corporate talked to some other brands down here also.
We talked to Marriott, and I got a call from a franchise group down here, and they said, hey, we can't get into town. One of the senior vice presidents of operations called me, and I said, hey, man, we'll send some guys over. That's what we did. So when you're in the storm, it's not a competition about rate. It's about, you know, it's about the employees, it's about the safe haven, and it's about recovering. So if you've been around, we definitely do business. And remember, a lot of our owners also own Marriott's and other brands, so the owner's also going to tie that piece together. But personally, you know, specifically here, we gave food off of those Cisco trucks to RLJ, to some of their hotels, which were non-Hilton branded hotels. However, they gave us the cables we needed. So there was
It's a good trade.
I got some food. You have cables, Carl? And so Carl had a bunch of cable. And I hate to use that as a very specific thing, but Carl brought the cables over. And this guy, Carl Mayfield, who now is the senior vice president of construction, works for us now, which is great. But at the time, and you know, we were burning up our phones. Good stuff.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, but I want to thank both of you for a very engaging conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, John, for stepping in.
Thank you.
On short notice.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.